Let's start manipulating shapes in Inkscape. So when you're working with shapes in Inkscape, and it's important to remember that there are two kinds of elements in an Inkscape document: objects and paths. And in this video we're going to go over how to manipulate objects, particularly paths, and we're going to focus on these tools here in the path menu, and these are shape operations, or sometimes called binary operations. So if we take a shape, an object shape, like a smart shape here, we'll take like a star, and we'll make a nice little star shape, and this will be a basis for us to work with. And let's take another shape, because it takes two to make a path operation here. And we learned in the last video about alignment, so I'm going to open the alignment menu and put these shapes right on top of each other like that. If I take these two shapes, the first one I want to show you is intersection. So we're going to look at these top three, and intersection is the first one. The cool thing about these operations is the icon really shows you exactly what it's going to do, so that kind of makes it easy. But basically you're going to look for what the dotted line obviously is going to be made to disappear, and the filled in part is going to be what's left. So intersection is going to take the two shapes and only include areas that both shapes include. Now another thing to note, as soon as you perform one of these operations, any object that was an object before is going to become a path. So it's equivalent to doing this object to path operation. So right now, for instance, if I click on the circle and I see the details, we have the object nodes here. We don't have the path nodes yet. So I select these two shapes, I go to path, I do intersection, and what it's going to do is only the areas where both of them existed before are going to show up. And if I click now on the edit by nodes, it's a path now. Alright, so that's how in principle this works. Let's do it again. Let's take a circle, and we'll put these two shapes in the center of each other, size this appropriately, and then we'll basically take these guys and we'll do the next operation. So in this case I want to do a union. So we're going to take the path, we'll do a union. That's going to combine both shapes and fill in any area where either shape was touching. We'll do it again. We'll go to the next operation. We'll center these up, and this time we're going to do a difference. So difference is going to subtract anything that the other shape, from the source shape to the destination shape, we're going to subtract, remove it. So now we have kind of a gear looking thing. That's kind of cool. The next thing I want to show is that with your gear, you can, when you're doing this operation, it's not a matter of which one is selected first. So remember over here we had in the alignment, we got to pick, do we want first selected or last selected as how we're going to do the operation. With path operations, it's a matter of which one is on top. So it has to do with Z order. So to show this, I'm going to go to the object menu and go to the objects panel. This is a relatively new control in Inkscape, but it's really, really valuable. So if I go to this objects menu here, I'm going to call this, I can actually name these, so I'll call this the gear, and I'll call this a circle. Okay, now right now the circle is on top. So I'm going to select the gear first and then hold shift and select the circle. And we'll do an operation like a difference. And you'll notice that the circle subtracted away from the gear, not the other way around. And that's because the circle was on top. If I undo that operation and I take the gear and I move it all the way to the top, I can select the gear first again, hold shift and select the circle, and we'll do the same path operation. This time the gear subtracted from the circle because the gear was on top. So that's kind of how that works. The next thing we're going to do is, we've covered the first 3 operations. We're going to go and do the next 3 operations. Now, I was hoping to try to find some clever object to make, and I couldn't come up with anything. So I drew inspiration from these little icons. I'll just make a circle and a square, and you'll be able to see what each of these operations does. So the first one they have, the next one they have is exclusion, and that's going to be just the opposite of intersection, where it just leaves a gap. And then we have division. Now this one's particularly useful. If I do a division, the operator shape, which in this case is the circle because it's on top, is going to disappear. But what it's going to do is it's going to break apart the target object into multiple shapes. So this can be really handy depending on what you're hoping to do. Because right now I have 2 shapes. They're separate shapes. And this can be really, really cool and helpful, because sometimes you do want the leftovers. It's kind of like the same thing as difference, except that it leaves you with the pieces in between. And there's one last one, and that's cut path. Now this one will be cool. So we'll do the same thing. We're going to go in here, take this one, select this one, and then path, cut path. Now, the thing that happens here is a little bit different. With cut path, it removes the fill, and there's a reason for that. This is now 2 shapes just like before, except that now it's a path that these aren't connected anymore. It has actually cut the path where the circle was, and it hasn't drawn any lines to replace it. So if I hit the node editor, you'll notice that we have our nodes, and these are not connected. So that's what cut path does. Now I'm actually going to be able to use this as an example. We're going to talk a little bit about the path nodes and how to control them. So in Inkscape, these dots along the path are called nodes. And we get, when we have in edit node mode, basically we have this dynamic bar at the top that gives us control over those nodes. So you'll notice the first things that we see here. Let's talk about these. Again, these are self-explanatory icons. They really help. So if I have 2 nodes and I want to merge them, I can select 2 nodes and click this button, and it will basically put a single node in their midpoint. Or if I have 1 and I want to split it, which if I have like this one here and I want to split it into 2, I can do that. Well, now I've separated the shape even more. If I have 2 nodes and I want to connect their lines, like that might be particularly handy here, I can connect a line there, and of course I can do the same thing. I can split and remove a line between 2 nodes with this button. The next 4 buttons here give you control over the mode of a particular node. So this is important to understand. When you have a node like this, it doesn't have any handles. The line is going to come straight away from the node. But if I add a handle here, which I can do by clicking on the line and dragging it, now the line is going to go in a curved direction away from the node. Now, I have a couple of different options with this. If I pick this node, I can actually change the mode of the node. So right now it's a corner node, but I can make it smooth with this. So when it's smooth, as I turn the handles around it, the other side is going to turn with it. If I go to the next one, which is symmetric, now you'll notice as I move the handles in and out, they're going to move the opposite handle is going to move in and out as well. That's pretty handy as well. And then there's the auto smooth. This is sort of a smart kind of node. What this is going to do is basically try to keep this as smooth as it can, depending on the surrounding nodes. So you'll notice as I move the next node in the path, it dynamically changes to try to make that point as smooth as it can. And of course, if I click it again, I can say, make it a corner again, and now I can move handles independently. If I want to remove a handle, let's say that I want to straighten this back out again. These dots are all in the same place. It's just that right now it's kind of a mess. If you hold Control and Alt on the keyboard and click on a node, that on a path handle, it will remove the handle. So I hold Control and Alt and click the handle, and I can actually set all of these back and end up back with my square. So that is how to manipulate shapes in Inkscape, and you'll use all those same tools over and over again. There's a lot more to paths. In this video, I'm not going to cover some of the other things you can do with paths, but we'll get to those in future videos. Thanks.